As a bona fide loot goblin, I can definitely say I have a bias towards games that have loot. But I have noticed a feature that has been trending in extraction shooters that completely devalues a huge portion of the game by making the players' lives easier: markets. Is this feature a net positive or a net negative for an extraction shooter? And is Arc Raiders better off without it? Well, let's get into it. Okay, so having played what I believe is a pretty wide variety of extraction shooters, I can say I've seen a lot of variations on how certain features can be implemented. Making loot valuable and meaningful is a great tool to drive players to go to certain maps and certain areas. It gives the player population a carrot to move from point A to point B, and likely colliding with other players, creating organic experiences. Typically, this is done in a direct fashion like a mission or a quest. Go grab XYZ thing and bring me back ABC amount of it. But passively, this is also done by attaching value to the loot itself, and this comes down to how you interact with it after extracting. Now you can call it what you want: crafting, selling directly to the game vendors, putting it into a player-driven market, whatever. It really doesn't matter, because it boils down to bringing back a specific pixel block that you're not going to use to get a pixel block that you actually want more. This could be another item or just more in-game currency. Some extraction shooters have what are often referred to as markets, flea markets, or player-driven markets. This is essentially an auction house where players put up items for sale, and those items are purchased by other players. When done well, it's incredibly convenient for a player to be able to simply search the market for the items they need and then buy them if they can. You're not hampered by luck or a lack thereof from being able to get what you need. But here's the question: is this convenience robbing the loot of its meaning and value while also creating negative effects in other parts of the game? In my opinion, I think markets make it significantly harder to make loot feel valuable. What often happens in games that have markets is that when you pick up loot in Raid, you will immediately judge the loot by the value it will net you on the market. You don't care about any other factor, because if you net the most profit, in turn it will allow you to just buy whatever you really want in the very same market. This reduces all loot items down to a color Tetris block to fit in your inventory that has a market sell value attached to it. Unless the value is significantly above the curve of what the norm is, there's really zero emotional investment in finding it or extracting with it. Now, to be fair, the upside to this is that there's an incredible amount of convenience the system offers the player, so that in and of itself is a huge selling point that should not be dismissed. But let's compare that to a game that I'm most familiar with that did not have markets: the Cycle Frontier. But before we get into that, if you've made it this far, I'd like to encourage you to hit that subscribe and notification button. Thank you for your consideration, and now back to the video. In the Cycle Frontier, loot generally fell into three categories: crafting/upgrading, selling to traders for money and XP, or mission items. I want to focus on crafting specifically. Crafting was a way to add value to items in a passive way. Some items and upgrades in the Cycle Frontier were only obtainable through crafting. You had to find the needed materials. While some items were also purchasable, it was only after a certain amount of progression, and even then, more expensive than just crafting them. Bear in mind that I'm using this as an example because, as you can already see, there are some similarities this has to Arc Raiders, which has a way more crafting-centric economy, which makes it especially valuable to pay attention to. This added layer of value to loot in the Cycle Frontier is what made it personal to the player, because no one has the same inventory or the same value placed on certain items. And since you couldn't just buy them, the items that were only craftable had a particularly high value that wasn't measured in currency alone. This in turn gave the crafting materials themselves high value based completely on the individual player's needs. If done correctly, crafting items can be used to both beginning players as well as late game players, retaining that loot appeal. This also made areas of the map continuously beneficial to visit regardless of how much progress you've made. If the only value an item has is its currency value, you'll have little reason to continuously visit areas outside of areas with high value loot. This will make this game stale more quickly. The variety of encounters becomes significantly more narrow as you are consistently encouraged to only visit a minority of locations the game has to offer. Well-constructed crafting/bartering recipes can make use of all, if not most, of the loot pool that the players interact with. And again, this could be variable since players place different value levels on certain items. For example, players who place a high priority on crafting grenades are more likely to frequent areas known for needed supplies than those who don't. This inherently builds a certain level of variability in players' encounters, keeping them fresh and unpredictable. But if I am being fair, this also has its downsides. The most obvious one is that players are at the mercy of RNG when it comes to looking for certain items. It would be a constant pain point for many players that complain about not finding items they were purposely looking for in order to progress in the game's fundamental systems. While this does have an obvious solution, don't tie progress to items that are hard to find and subject to RNG, it's not the only potential flaw. Early on, the Cycle Frontier had a problem with grenade spamming. Without getting too far into it, Jaeger in their wisdom decided to make frag grenades craftable only instead of purchasable from the vendor. However, the gas grenades were still purchasable. Now, despite the frag grenades being easy to craft, overnight the frag grenade spam became gas grenade spam. Once gas grenades became craftable only as well, there was a near and total elimination of grenade usage other than the smoke grenades, which were still purchasable. A lot of the battle pass and mission rewards had grenades in them, so you still saw them from time to time. But the sharp drop off in usage was extreme. Now, the crafting system wasn't exactly streamlined in the Cycle Frontier, so there could have been some significant improvements to be made there that could have contributed to the significant drop in usage. But that's not the point. Despite being really easy to craft, frag grenades became rare. Such a dramatic drop in usage had me wondering, do players hate crafting and looting that badly? Maybe that justifies markets as a feature. The Arc Raiders economy depends way more heavily on crafting, so players have to become familiar with this process. I believe with a thorough introduction and improved UI, this will teach players to be less apprehensive about crafting if that was something they were already feeling. Markets do devalue loot in-game, but it also removes the need for players to have to learn what to loot and why. Players enjoy the game more as they become more competent in it. But if they learn too much, too easily, the game no longer retains a level of mystery or newness. Markets completely remove a huge portion of discovery you'll have for the game. While markets do remove a large influence RNG can have on a player's ability to find what they need, adding a level of convenience that is normally a benefit, the amount of negative impact they have, especially on a game like Arc Raiders, is absolutely not worth it. You could say it reduces the skill floor significantly, making it more accessible, which is the Arc Raiders' goal. However, I could make the case that the kind of players an extraction shooter is going to appeal to and hold on to would not be deterred by the idea of learning what to loot, where, and why, especially when there's usually no shortage of guides on the subject for any given game. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Twitch and Discord links down below. Thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.